Hey music fans, I'm Ken the Metal Professor. I am the host of Mostly Metal on WVLP in Valparaiso, Indiana. It's been a couple of weeks since I did one of these videos. I've been slacking off, unfortunately. It's been a weird but busy couple of weeks. But today I put together my show for this week, which under current situations is being done in advance. So I pulled all my sound files together and whipped it up. A 2-hour block for Wednesday nights and Sunday nights. This week we'll have my top 10 favorite REO Speedwagon songs, so that'll probably be my next video. What I'm going to talk about now is Fates Warning. So we're all going to think about Fates Warning for a bit, and I played my top 10 favorite Fates Warning songs last week. After I did that today, let's see, I've gone grocery shopping. I picked up a car that needed its battery replaced. I've walked the dogs, I've put away the groceries, I've started the laundry. What else have I done? Filled up the dog's water dish and put stuff out to be ready to make dinner in just a while. So I am ready to talk about Fates Warning. Normally when I do these, if a band has more than 10 studio albums, I would separate the video where I talk about the top 10 favorite songs versus my ranking of their albums, but I think just for brevity here and less hassle, there's 12 Fates Warning albums in the loop. I'm just going to put that list and also my top 10 favorites in this same video, and I'll try to make it snappy, but obviously I'm not doing very well at that so far. Alright, so my own personal history with Fates Warning started with Parallels. And so when I rank the albums from the one I'm least likely to grab when it's time to listen to Fates Warning to the one I'm most likely to grab, you have to take that into consideration. I think there's probably a couple of different camps of Fates Warning folks. There's people that like the John Arch era and people that much prefer the Ray Alder era. I am in the latter category, and I'm pretty sure at some point during this I'm going to say John Bush instead of John Arch. So if I do that, just let it go. So having come in at Parallels, and that was my first exposure to Fates Warning, going back and hearing the early albums with John Arch on vocals is a thing you have to get used to, and I don't know that I ever got used to it. I don't enjoy the early albums nearly as much as the later albums, which sort of loads up the lower portion of my ranking. I'm going to put The Spectre Within as the one I'm least likely to grab when it's time to listen to Fates Warning. And then right next to that, at spot 11, Night on Brocken, their debut album. And I suppose any given week those two might flip-flop in their order. The Spectre Within has The Apparition, which will actually be in my list of top 10 favorite songs. But other than that, I don't know that I enjoy the album that much. Night on Brocken is a little bit more consistent, but I don't know that it has any individual songs that really stand out. I'm not in tune with sort of the higher pitch, the higher pitched vocals of John Arch. And so you would think Awaken the Guardian might be next, but it actually isn't. So after The Spectre Within on Night on Brocken, now I'm going to dip into the Ray Alder era and pick Disconnected as one I'm not very likely to go grab and listen to when I feel like some Fates Warning. Now the album is saved by Still Remains, the longer track that, I don't think it's the very last song, but it's the second to last perhaps. That's, to me, just a perfectly good classic Fates Warning song, but there is definitely a mood switch after Pleasant Shade of Grey and Inside Out. By the time Disconnected came out, the Fates Warning sound had shifted a bit, and so Disconnect is much more moody and dark. It's, I don't want to say it's not as proggy, but could I say it's even a little bit more ambient maybe? I don't know quite how to describe it, but it doesn't connect with me that well. In fact, Disconnected with the cover art with the people in the gas masks is actually a pretty good metaphor for the current climate in the world. So we got The Spectre Within, Night on Brocken, then Disconnected, and then here comes Awaken the Guardian. That, to me, is my favorite of the three John Arch albums, but obviously, other than Disconnected, I still don't like those as much as any of the other Ray Alder discs. The track Guardian itself is good. I mean, it's I think, really where they're starting to form themselves in terms of their progression into where they're coming next. But again, it's the John Arch vocals I'm just not a big fan of. Okay, coming in at number 8 is FWX. This to me is a very hit or miss proposition. There are a couple of songs on there that are really nice melodic tunes. Another Perfect Day and a handful of Doubt. But other songs that I think are more connected to Disconnected in the fact that they're a little bit more ambient and moody than they are. I mean, they're still heavy. They're pitched deeply. But they don't just have the nice melodies that make me want to go back and listen to them again. So there are really good tracks on it, but still it doesn't climb my list. Next up at 7 will be Darkness in a Different Light. This was an improvement to me over FWX and Disconnected. It starts off really well with 1,000 Fires and Firefly, and it closes really well with And Yet It Moves. In between those, okay, it's all right, but not a whole lot catches my attention there. Number 6, Inside Out. I really love Monument and Shelter Me and Island in the Stream. Now, this was a step down from the previous albums, but it was still, maybe not classic Fates Warning. Maybe they were trying to, trim those songs down a little bit and be a little bit more direct with their music, but I still found a lot to like on it. Number 5 is the latest, Theories of Flight. I really dig this album. Again, it opens really strong with From the Rooftops and 7 Stars, and it closes really well with The Ghosts of Home. Now, that's not the very last track, but boy, it's a whopper of a song, and I really dig it. It's like they were saving up with that for a few years. I like that disc from beginning to end more so than the 3 or 4 predecessors. Okay, now we're getting into the core, and you know what's left. At number 4, Perfect Symmetry. Through Different Eyes, At Fate's Hands, Chasing Time, Nothing Left to Say. To me, those are the best tunes on the album. I'm gonna link that with number 3, No Exit, because they're close to each other in my mind. But I think I do like No Exit a little bit better. Anarchy Divine and Shades of Heavenly Death are the best songs on, I'm going to think of it as side 1, right? Because side 2 is the epically long 21-minute track, The Ivory Gate of Dreams, which is just terrific. When I started listening to Fates and heard Parallels, I went backwards and I tried some of the John Arch stuff, and then I tried No Exit, and to me that was a bit of a relief. I wonder if some of the material on No Exit was written with John Arch in mind, because they have Ray Alder, kind of up there at a higher register than he is on some of his other albums, when I think the music and what his preference is in terms of range got a little bit closer. Especially the first couple of tracks on that album sound like something that could have been on Awaken the Guardian, just with a different vocalist now. But yeah, that's a good CD. Number 3, No Exit. And then number 2, I'll put Parallels. Again, my first introduction to Fates Warning, I bought this on cassette. I heard this at exactly the same time as Images and Words. Okay, not exactly the same time, maybe about 50 minutes apart, because I distinctly remember living on the East Coast, hearing about these bands, driving to a mall, going into a record store, and I bought on cassette Images and Words and Parallels, and I played Images and Words in the car on the way home, and then I heard Parallels after that. And from that day on, my life was different. Life in Stillwater, 11th Hour, We Only Say Goodbye, Don't Follow Me, man, those are some of my favorite tunes in all of prog metal, not just in the Fates Warning category. And it's only, to me, surpassed by A Pleasant Shade of Grey. That's my number 1 favorite Fates Warning album. And it's just, it's a masterpiece, right? 55-minute progressive rock epic. The best Ray Alder has sounded. Definitely an ambitious album. It's not as heavy all the way through. It's very much more moody, and it's got mellow parts, it's got heavier parts. Ray Alder sounds great from beginning to end. There, to me, it's a quintessential heavy metal album, whether you call it quintessential progressive metal album or just a metal album. Make the category bigger. This one's still up at the top. So again, my ordering from the ones I'm least likely to most likely to grab: Spectre Within, Night on Brocken, Disconnected, Awaken the Guardian, FWX, Darkness in a Different Light, Inside Out, Theories of Flight, Perfect Symmetry, No Exit Parallels, and A Pleasant Shade of Gray. Now, there's no reason that you should care about my dopey opinion about these things. The whole point here is just, I've talked about Fates Warning a little bit. Hopefully you've thought about Fates Warning a little bit, and hopefully you want to go out there and listen. And since you are going to go out there and listen, now I can give you my top 10 favorite Fates Warning songs. So, as I mentioned, I'm much more a fan of the Ray Alder period than I am of the John Arch period. I should say, if you're watching this, I probably don't need to tell you, but just in case, if you are a Ray Alder fan, make absolutely sure you've gone out there and listened to his work in Redemption. Nick Van Dyke is the singer-songwriter, not singer, but the main songwriter there, guitar player. He's had spectacular folks in the background for him. He's had Ray Alder on vocals for all but the first album, and now, of course, the most recent, where Tom England from Evergrey has taken over. Now, that's not a bad switch, but again, if you like Ray Alder, make sure that you've heard Redemption. You'll be doing yourself a favor. My top 10 favorite Fates Warning tunes. I needed to put something from John Arch in there, so at number 10, I'm putting The Apparition off of The Spectre Within. I think that's, well, I don't think, I know that of the John Arch albums, that's my favorite song. I really appreciate the instrumentation as well as its mix with the vocal style. At number 9, I will put At Fate's Hands off of Perfect Symmetry. And I don't think this is the Dream Theater fanboy in me coming out because of Kevin Moore's appearance on that song. I just think it's a great song. I mean, maybe, the instrumental section in it has something to do with Kevin Moore's presence, but it's still a Fates Warning song, and it might have sounded just like it does if they had a different keyboardist sitting in. But I really like when that middle of the song opens up into a longer instrumental portion. I dig that. Number 8, Anarchy Divine off of No Exit. This is a great way for Ray Alder to announce himself to the world. Actually, the little mini track that precedes it, No Exit itself, is a better way to introduce himself to the world. But Anarchy Divine lets you know that if you were a fan of John Arch, at least for a while, you weren't being thrown a curveball. Yes, it was a new person. To me personally, I thought his voice is smoother, and as the albums go on and he gets to lower the register a little bit, much like Geddy Lee did, right, over several albums in the mid to later career of Rush, he really smoothed himself out. But even early on, you knew the band was in good hands, even, I think, for fans of John Arch. Have I said John Bush yet? I hope not. John Arch. Number 7, The 11th Hour off of Parallels. Just a great way to close I think of it as side 1 because I bought it on cassette first. I think that song it's the 11th hour, and I think it's 11 minutes long, if I remember right. Number 6, Monument off of Inside Out. I love the guitar work on this album, on this particular song. It's almost flamenco-ish in a couple of places, and I'm sure I'm misusing that word, but it's a different styling than you're used to hearing on Fates Warning CDs, and I like it a lot. At number 5, The Ivory Gate of Dreams off of No Exit. I mean, how can you not like that long 21-minute opus? At number 4, The Ghosts of Home off of Theories of Flight. My favorite song of theirs by far over the last couple of albums, and with one exception, it's my second favorite song overall since, quite a long time ago now. But it's just, I love the way the song builds and explodes at you and then kind of settles back into the background when it finally fades away. Okay, I'm going to be showing my hand here with what I've picked for the top 3 because I'm a sucker for just a good melody. I love heavy, I love crunch, but I love a good melody, something that just becomes an earworm and sticks in my head. Usually songs with a lot of screaming, don't stick in my mind very long. I love smooth, I love melodic. So at number 3, We Only Say Goodbye off of Parallels. It's a beautiful tune. Ever since I first heard it, I preferred that even more so than the wittily progressive stuff that came on that album. And then at number 2, Another Perfect Day off of FWX. I just love the really thick, juicy guitar chords on there, and Ray Alder's vocals. It's slower, it's mellower. But it makes me think about driving through the mountains with the window down in the summer and the breeze going through my hair. It's just one of those songs that makes a perfect connection. And then at number 1, much like my album list, I'm going to put A Pleasant Shade of Gray, which, it's a 55-minute song. Okay, it's broken up into different parts on the track list, so if I had to, I would probably pick the even numbers. It's kind of like the Star Trek movies. The even ones are the better ones. I know that I prefer parts 4, 6, and 8 to many of the other parts on A Pleasant Shade of Gray, but the piece as a whole is just tremendous. And if you haven't heard it before, carve an hour out of your life and go listen to it. You won't regret it. So there we go. That's my tour through Fates Warning. I hope you thought about Fates Warning a little bit, and this made you want to go out and listen to them. And I think my next video will be my top 10 favorite REO Speedwagon songs and a ranking of their discography. So quite a change in musical gears there, but I like it all.